But thank you guys all for coming and coming and listening to our conversation here this morning. I hope you guys didn't come looking for all the answers. I think we're really excited to let everybody know what we've done here at Hartnell and how we've put our students into the workplace during COVID. But we don't have all the answers, and there's definitely going to be some time where we're going to want to listen and share from you guys and find out how you guys have done it as well. But again, just thank you so much for coming. My name is Clint Cowden. I'm the dean that oversees CTE and workforce development. Pete, want to introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Peter Scotto, full-time faculty in the Advanced Automotive program here at Hartnell College.
And Pete, do you want to talk a little bit about Ray? Ramon, he wasn't able to come. Raymond, he wasn't able to come.
Oh yeah, Roman is a parts and service director from Toyota. He is one of our advisory members, but he was the first dealership to really step up and say, let's do something. Me and Roman, we come from very similar backgrounds. We come from this area, born and raised in this area. So we saw that there was a big need to help students, and it was really nice to have them step up and be part of it and back us up with what we're trying to do.
Right. And Jackie?
Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Jackie Mahoney, and I'm an account executive for Balance Staffing. And I've had the honor of partnering with Hartnell College and getting the students to work.
Thank you. Belen.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Belen Gonzalez. I'm the coordinator of job and internship placement with a focus with our CTE students, and I work in our career prep and placement services office.
So today, what kind of the big picture of you is a whole lot less of the dean and a whole lot more of these guys that actually made this thing work. But kind of what we're going to be talking about today is we're going to talk about our problem, how our automotive internship program or our solution came about. We have an interview with our employer and our faculty member that we took from 1 hour and 20 minutes and boiled it down to 7. I think Mr. Escoto is going to say that we cut out too much, but I think it definitely gives the highlights. And then based on you guys' feedback, we're going to go into the deeper level dive of actually how we did it. And so we don't want to get into the sausage making at the beginning. We kind of want to give you guys kind of the bigger overview, and then we'll move into kind of the deeper levels based upon your interest. So, our first thing is, what was a problem? And for those of you guys that are deans in the audience here, I'm sure you all remember this. All of a sudden, here we're close to spring break. I know for myself, I was in Washington, D.C., working on some stuff on a grant, and we come back and we have COVID. Our schools are shut down. They're telling me that my students are going to come back. I've been in my position for 4 years. Pete's been in his position for 4 years. Our program was just getting going. Belen had been in her position for 3 years. And so the concept that we kept getting told by industry is we needed internship programs. Students needed to be doing these things. And we know we needed students to be working with their hands in the classroom and having internships. And in one fatal swoop, that all ended. And I love Pete to death. And Pete loves his students, but Pete was trying to get me fired because he wanted to help his students. He was out there trying to find any way, means, how he could to be able to get his students with hands-on experience. And what was the colleges? We were terrified, right? Because what we were terrified about was this concept that, if a student gets COVID, now under OSHA, that all is going to fall on us. Everybody was terrified. And the answer was, let's just hold off. Let's not have students learn with their hands. Let's wait and see. And the problem was our employers needed well-trained people right now. Our students needed to be able to do this. And it was nothing to do with me. It was all the other people on the line. They figured out ways to make it legal at our college where we didn't have to do things that we weren't supposed to be doing. So that's kind of the big picture of where we're going to be talking about. I think one of the amazing things that was a side effect of this that we're going to find as we come out of it is this may have been one of our biggest equity things we've ever done. So many of our students in our district, just like all of your districts, they may not have a car or an area to work on it at home. They don't have these opportunities. And so what is this type of thing that we're doing here? How can we get young people that don't have that experience, something outside of the classroom, to really give them that real world work? And this is a huge thing. And oh yeah, that's right, it's paid. And so many of our students can't just volunteer their time. They've got to have that paycheck when they're going along. So that's where we're at now. I'm supposed to stop sharing, and we're going to go through poll 1. And I'm going to launch the poll. And so I would like to take about 3 minutes, and if everybody can please go in and do the poll. Good job, administrators. First to answer. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end the poll. So we had 6 people do it, so we're evenly spread with staff, faculty, administrators, and our one other is our friends from ROP. Lynn, can they unmute?
Yes, they should be able to. Feel free to unmute. Like, we're really looking for a conversation here too.
This is not one of those really formal ones, guys. Okay, so anyway, so we have an other there. Most of you guys aren't working directly with your internships. Most of you are, 71% of you are do have paid internships. But none of you guys are working with an outside staffing agency. And so that is really excellent to hear. So I think there is going to be some benefit for you guys to be able to see what we're doing today. So that being said, we'll go ahead and I'm going to share my screen again, and we will go ahead and now Jackie and Glenn, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Clint. So just kind of to give like a quick overview, I don't want to get too deep into it yet, but just to kind of start with like what our process is and what we're doing. Like Clint mentioned, we had an issue. We didn't know how to get students that hands-on experience. So we kind of really just came together and developed, like, I want to say within a week, we came up with a program to kind of get everything just a nice flow to it. So just some simple things, just to kind of give some background. We're in the process of implementing kind of like a job board database tracking system. So right now we have nothing. So right now I use Canvas and I use Excel to track a lot of my stuff. And a lot of us have Google Suite through our colleges. So Google Forms, Google Docs, a lot of that type of stuff is kind of what really has helped organize us and made a lot of our stuff a little more accessible. So we came up with a student interest form. They're able to complete that if they're interested in an internship. On the employer side, we wait for them to reach out, or and then we just kind of have from that interest form a list of students that are ready to go. We're able to match. I refer to Pete a lot to be able to be like, okay, hey, this is what the student said. This is what their experience is. Can you tell me more about them? And then also Pete usually comes in and talks a lot with the employer because he's very much more the content expert in that area of what their needs are. And he also kind of handles an interview prep and dress code workshop for our students. And he'll go into more detail about that. And pretty much, Jackie, do you want to talk about your part that you guys are doing on balanced staffing?
Sure, I'd love to. So this was really exciting when Pete came to me, and one of the employers in the local Salinas area talked to me about a partnership with our local college, being Hartnell College, and would I entertain the idea of partnering with them to payroll or become the employer of record, if you will, for the students. And we were really excited because Balance is very much into supporting, community outreach type programs. And this program has been super exciting for Balance and our team because we work, hand in hand with Belen and Pete in, getting the students paid internship programs. And we're still working out a couple of the kinks, but for the most part, it's just gone super smooth, and the students are learning, right? They're on the job learning. So I don't know what else you want me to talk about, Belen, just right out of the gate, but I could go on for days talking, but just let me know.
I think I know a lot of you mentioned that you guys aren't working with staffing agencies. So one part I wanted to stress, I was a little reluctant when they first kind of pitched the idea of working with a staffing agency. I thought about fees. I thought about time limits. I thought about a lot of those type of things. But it was really great when Jackie came in and was able to kind of give us the background, what their goals were. And like we said, this was really an opportunity to kind of help and find a way to make things work. So with our agreement, there is no time limit. I'm helping bring the match into kind of all together, kind of doing the background work and kind of doing a little bit of a handoff to Jackie. And so pretty much the real main concept here is that the staffing agency is coming in and they're kind of really playing that payroll services role. And they become the employer of record. Liability goes with them. That's a big part on mine too when I'm going out and talking with employers. Liability is always an issue. Whose liability fall on? Who has to pay? Oh, do I have to do the paperwork? Oh, it takes so long to bring someone into our HR system. And so this program that we created really kind of took care of a lot of those items.
Yeah, if I could just piggyback on what you had mentioned, Belen, it's it's a benefit to the student and a benefit to the employer who is looking to have an intern come and work for them. And one of the biggest questions and the aha moments that I get from employers who we're partnering up with is the biggest thing is their bill rate, if you will, because I charge them a bill rate, is substantially less because it is called a payroll service. And what that means is that I'm not spending my money or my time or my recruiter's time going out sourcing and interviewing and screening candidates for a job. Belen and Pete are doing that. They're doing all that upfront legwork. and I'm coming in and I'm working with the employer, and the markup is substantially less. And what happens is I work with that employer and I put an agreement together, and I can put that agreement together in 30 minutes and send it to the employer, and they sign it. I coordinate with the student, have them fill out all of the onboarding paperwork, and then I become the employer of record. And so in that bill rate, that covers the employee's pay rate, it covers workers' comp, it covers liability, all of the employer contributions in the state of California. That is our tick to take. So that's our role in that.
And just to kind of lead off of that, um, it's just a really great opportunity for the students. And then there's still that support. We're offering support on our side, even though I mentioned we do a handoff with the staffing agency. That doesn't mean I'm out of the picture. It doesn't mean Pete's out of the picture. We very much still play an active role with the student. Jackie and I actually partner. We talk about what's going on with the placement. We talk about any issues coming up with an employer, if there are any. And so it's just really a great collaborative partnership where there is a lot of back and forth.
And that's what I would say to the administrators out there. I mean, for those guys that are administrators, and especially if you're a CTE administrator, you know, one of the things that we find, right, is we're out there and we're communicating with our industry, and a lot of times that's that bottleneck, right? That's that stop point of why an employer is not interested in bringing, you know, an intern and a low skilled person onto their job site. It isn't that they don't support you. You know, a lot of us, we find out they'll write us a check. It's harder for us to get a student in their shops than it is for them to donate us money or equipment or those types of things. And here is this opportunity in which now all of a sudden it's a very, very low risk standard for an employer to now take on a student and be able to bring them in and give them that mentorship that's there. And so it has really changed a lot of the conversation that we've had at Hartnell. So now we're going to jump into the video real quick here. And again, our employer wasn't able to make it here today, and darn it, he has to make money. I don't know why. I mean, you know, he needs to just come and do things for the college. But so we're going to do a video, and we're going to go over, and it's going to just go, you know, over these 3 bullets here of how does the internship program work, the importance of the faculty, and the employer needs. So I'm going to stop sharing. Someone talk while I now find it on my computer.
I just wanted to mention, feel free to ask any questions along the way. You could do it through chat. You can unmute yourself. We're really here to answer anything you might have. I had tons of questions when we started even thinking about this program. So feel free to ask anything.
And coming out of industry, you know, I've worked over 25 years in the industry, everything from owning my own shop to working in big dealerships, small dealerships, working in the San Jose area, working in a small town. There are a lot of things that might kind of hold you back. And I think the big thing is liability is what we're all really worried about. So let's watch the video, and then afterwards I'll talk a little bit more, because once I start talking, it's hard for me to shut up. So what we did is we sent out an email first to all the students and asked them who would be interested in signing up with this temp agency. Of course, they get to put in their work schedule. They will put in what tier they're at so that the dealerships know, and their personal information. Then what happens is with that information that Belen gathers, actually, because as soon as the students say, okay, I sent out the email to the students, then everybody who responds, Belen sends a survey out to them. Now that survey will have a bunch of questions, and she'll collect all of that data. Once she collects all that data, my understanding she shares that with Jackie, right? With the temp agency. Then the temp agency has all of the students' information. Then we just wait. Once the students are signed up, then and the temp agency doesn't really do anything. And Belen is the one that really helps me out at the college, because then when a student says, or I get a phone call from one of the dealerships and say Roman says, "Hey, I need somebody," and so then I told Belen, "Okay, Belen, here's Roman. Roman said he needs somebody." Then we'll have a list of students. Belen will say, "Okay, here are the list of students," and then we'll present them to Roman and say, "Okay, these are the students that we have that are available, that work for you. If you want, we can send them in for an interview." And we try to prepare the students so that they have a resume, so that they have any certifications or certificates that they have through the program, whether they're NC3 certificates, anything that they have from their online training that they have completed through Ford or Toyota. We have them printed up and put in a little binder. And of course, before they go in, per request from the dealerships, is that we kind of do a little mock interview now. Then they go, they do the interview, and then we wait to hear back from them and see who they pick. The setup, it just takes a little bit of time, but once you have them set up, then they're in there. And the awesome thing about this is that because they're set up, they could get hired right away.
It's really nice because we break it out in tiers. They're able to select exactly what classes they have taken, what they plan to take, and what they're in the process of taking. We ask for those certifications to be listed there, kind of any interest that they have. We're trying to make the perfect fit for the employer. We want to make sure we get the students placed with where they're interested also.
I think Belen does a really good job as far as communicating. And it's not that the faculty have to dedicate a lot of time to this. It's really quick. You know, it is important though to have those quick communication sessions, you know, and they really are quick. It's just like an email. It is key for us to be, I think, faculty to be part of it, because we do get to know their personalities a little bit more.
With this program, I started to think that, you know, maybe this could be, after discussing it with the temp agency, negotiating the price and trying to get them on the same level to work with Pete and Hartnell, it was important that there wasn't a whole lot of red tape for someone like myself. If I was interested in hiring from my local community college, that I had one contact, one person that I could go to. So it was very important that a personal touch was added into there, so that way there's one contact that knew, you know, what the process and procedures were at Hartnell, as well as knowing what the dealership needs were.
We talked about it in advisory and we kind of seen the interest there. And then after that, Pete, you convened all of the dealerships and brought them in specifically just to talk about this new internship program that we could have going. And then we did the same thing. We worked with the employers, and then we brought in the students and did kind of that whole thing too, where you're like, I think these students are ready. Let's pull them all together and get them to fill out that interest form.
And the thing about advisories, I think sometimes they show up and everybody's motivated, but then they leave and that's it. Nothing happens. And I think a follow-up meeting with them personally, with one goal that we talked about the advisory. Okay, like we talked about the advisory, let's meet for this. And I think that meeting was very successful. Having everybody meet and talk about this or share their ideas of what they thought.
Right. So again, I'm going to go over again from a dean's perspective. One of the things that we always hear about from our employers, right, is complication, and it, or at least we surveyed. When I first came here to this college, we surveyed about 200 employers and asked them about, you know, kind of what was one of our biggest problems that we weren't doing. And one of their complaints is hiring our students. They had to have a magic connection with one of our instructors. You know, there was no single point of contact. And I think by being able to create Belen's position, that was phenomenal. But then this other segment of it is we still, our college, we still, every single time we wanted to place a student in an internship, we had to run an MOU that went all the way to our board. It was complicated, to say the least. By being able to have this one MOU that's moving through the board, It is so much quicker. The red tape is really gone, and it is so amazing to be able to communicate with an employer, and truly say, you know what, yes, we have the students, we have the opportunity that we can be able to move forward with this. And Belen, I still don't have poll number 2, so I'm just going to go ahead and move on. So now if you guys want to go into Belen,
there was a few questions in the chat. Do you want me to answer those?
Yes.
If that's okay. So before we
Please.
continue, I want to answer those. I know when I attend these things and I have a question, I want to make sure it gets answered before we go any further. So I would like to address a couple of these questions. The first one asked about confusion with the students. And just to clarify, the student does not contact the staffing agency. All the student does is fill out the form with Belen. So when we first started this, one of the questions was from the dealerships. Like I asked, and Roman specifically, because he was the first one from the local Toyota dealership, is what is it that you want to know about the students? And so I have been a previous employer, so I know what, and actually I've worked for many of the dealerships locally here in this area, so I kind of know what they're looking for. So we created a bunch of questions, but one of the hardest things was, how does a dealership know what they're getting? So when we began the process, the student, I sent out the email. The student says, yeah, Pete or Mr. Skoda, I want to be part of the program. I say, okay, then I send an email that includes Belen, and I say, Belen, so-and-so wants to be part of the program. Belen will send out the survey, and we get the student's information, and that's it. After that, the student's on hold. He doesn't do anything else. Then what we do is we gather their information, we put it all, then we communicate with Jackie, and they get set up in the program. So once they're in there, now they're on the list. And now we're just waiting for one of the companies to reach out and say, hey, we're looking for somebody. So the student doesn't really have to do anything. And actually, one of the hardest things for the student is to wait, because they're constantly saying, so now what I do? Now what I do? I say nothing. We're just waiting. We're waiting for the dealership to contact us once they're looking for something. Now, going now to the next question, kind of coming off of that, is how do the dealerships know what they're getting? And as an employer, I want to know, where's this guy at in the program? So we kind of set up a tier system. This is the way, the tier system that we kind of came up with, so that the dealerships know where they're at. We have students in tier 3, 2, and 1. 1 being the top tier, 3 being the bottom tier. So any student who has completed 0 or who's currently taking their first course to 2 courses that they have completed, so 0 to 2 courses, that's tier 3. So when the dealership comes in and I say, you know what, all I have are tier 3 students, then they know what they're getting. They know that this student is barely starting up in the program, that they do not have a lot of hands-on experience, but they are interested, they are hungry, they do want to learn, they want to give it a shot. Then we have the tier 2 students. Tier 2 students are those students that have completed between 3 and 6 courses. So we have a total of 10 courses in our automotive program. So if they're right in the middle between 3 and 6, then they're tier 2. So that shows that they're in the middle of the program. They will also provide a list of the classes that they have taken and the classes that they're going to take. That way the dealership kind of knows where they're at. And then our tier 1 students are those that have completed at least 7, to being in their last semester. So that way the dealership knows, okay, these guys are about to graduate. These guys are about to finish the program. These guys are ready to come to work, full time as soon as they're done. And they also have more knowledge and more experience in the program and in the field. I hope that answered everybody's question. Are you good?
I could actually take the time to share our form that we created together, Pete, based on kind of what questions we found we were constantly asking students and trying to take notes on. And we're like, hey, why don't you just tell us from the get-go?
Yeah. We had that was a working process also, because after we created it, one of the first things we realized is that dealerships, before these students go, the students need to have their driver's license. I never really thought about it, but if they don't have their driver's license, it's hard for them to hire them. And they have to have a good driving record, because they're going to be driving, $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 vehicles. and their insurance has to cover them. So we need to make sure that they do have their driver's license and that they do have a good driving record.
Hi. Hi, my name's Tracy. I'm from Saddleback College in Orange County. And I just have a question. Does the student receive the class credit for that externship or internship? Is he receiving the class credit at the same time?
That's completely.
So I'll jump in, Blinn, maybe, and then you answer too. So it really depend on which one there is. Some of these are really, really, really short experiences. They may be 3 to 5 hours. Some of these are longer ones that they're going to be in cooperative work experience. And again, that's the flexibility of being able to, we were kind of set up for a longer experience. I mean, our college was okay with something that was going to be in that 60 hours or something that you would see in a cooperative work experience. Where we were struggling with is something that was much smaller, a 3-5 hour, maybe 3 days, something along those lines. So that's where this, to me, really opened our doors with being able to be really flexible for either a specific class content. And let's face it, part of this was Mr. Escoto had some student learning outcomes that he couldn't teach when we didn't have a shop. So he was able to go in and those were really, Mr. Escoto, how many hours was those first students needing?
What happened is we were part of a program with some of these dealerships, and because of that, they need a certain amount of hands-on. So every student needed a minimum of about 20 hours. And this came up this was not planned. It's not like at the beginning of the semester, we said, okay, this is what we're going to do. But this was kind of a work in process. This happened in March, everything shut down. We couldn't get back into the classroom. Some students did have already some hands-on experience, but when we came to the fall and they said, okay, we're not going to go back, then it was like, okay, we got to do something. We have to try to get these students some hands-on experience somehow, any way. And working in the field, I know how important it is, and also because a lot of these students, they have to learn with their hands. There is no other way. I'm trying to help them adapt, and it's worked out. I still have full classes, even though we're full online. But we had to try to sneak them in, at least a little bit, sneak them in somehow. And that was why we reached out to the dealerships. And yes, these are set up as paid internships. And there are a lot of reasons why it seems like it wouldn't work, but it actually does work very well for the dealerships also. So when we came up with this with Roman from the local Toyota dealership, he said, let's try this. And I said, Roman, if in order for me to get these guys, and I say Roman more than anybody else because he was the one that was reaching out to me the most and said, what can we do? What can we do? And I said, I need to get hands-on. I need these students that need hands-on training at least 20 hours. Can you work that in between now and the end of the semester? And he said, yeah. And that's when this agency came up. The hardest thing, of course, whenever we say students going into a shop is liability. So we said, okay, so we talked to Jackie. Jackie said, you know what? I could set something up with you guys. And so then Roman said, okay, send them in. So they were able to go in 4-hour blocks to the shop, complete certain tasks. We worked out who was going to do what they were going to do. We made sure that these students, before they went in, they finished all of their safety certifications through NC3. So they knew how to work safely. They knew how to use the information they were going to use when they got into there. They knew what they were going to do. And I had already met with the shop foreman and said, hey, these guys need to go in and do an oil change. Can you, walk them through the steps of doing an oil change? So first they went in and they went to the lube rack and they just watched. They watched them work for a few hours. Then he pulled them apart and said, okay, let me show you guys how to do an oil change. And he went through and he showed them how to do an oil change. Then after that, we came in and I said, hey, these are the tasks for the next week. And these tasks through these dealerships, I don't know if you guys are familiar, but in the automotive field, we have task sheets that we need to complete. Many of these task sheets are maybe 1 or 2 pages. Through this program, these tasks were like 15 pages. So it was very thorough, and it pretty much said step by step what they had to do. So once they completed their task, they saw the pace that the dealership works at. These students, first of all, were super excited just to be at the dealership. Second, that somebody took the time to teach them how to do it there because they couldn't come into the college. And at the end, actually, I went back in and we tested them. I did a hands-on final with them that the dealership, was willing to to let us do. They lent me a rack and they lent me some cars, and they said, these cars need oil changes anyways. And and under the supervision of the shop foreman, they went ahead and they did it. So it worked out really well. The dealership was willing to work with them, and they got their hands-on experience. So these short-term blocks of them being able to work were really great for the dealerships. The reason they really liked it is that they found out, wow, I could test drive a student. They can bring a student in, see how he works, and see, oh yeah, this is the kind of student, hey, so what's this student doing later? They actually ended up hiring, of the 3 students that started off, they hired 2 of the students. One of the students did not do very well, but surprising thing from that student is that when I had to talk to him and say, hey, you didn't do very good, your impression on the dealership was this because of this, the student had a very positive reaction. He said, you know what, Scott, I realize it, I know. And the good thing is it's his first semester. So he can still, kind of go through and progress and, and go back. But we had a really good relationship between me and Roman as far as communicating and saying, hey, you know what? I really like this student. He was on the ball. He knew how to use all the programs already. I did not mind dedicating somebody to help them. So now the dealerships can try these students out. And being a previous employer, I know that sometimes when you hire somebody, you go through the whole process, right? Takes 2-3 weeks by the time you do a background check, you do fingerprints, and then you hire him and you find out, oh, wow, this guy doesn't really fit what I need right now. And now how do you get rid of him, kind of, or try somebody else, So it really opened up something new for the students.
Very good. Thanks, Pete. Belen, just looking over here and seeing some of the questions, will you go through the different forms just so that everybody can kind of see that workflow process that you guys have created? And as you get those kind of pulled up, I'll talk as some of that. Yes, today we're talking about the perspective because we don't know of anybody that's really doing this type of work in a kind of in a heavy CTE environment. But one of the things that came up with this, and once we had this opportunity coming up, and I don't know if you guys have had the same thing, but when the new COVID funding started happening, I started getting calls from banks and saying, you know what, we're going to have this big spike in employment. We need some people for a very short time period. Hey, community college, can you work with us? Can you do this? And as soon as I communicated about this activity, it was a no-brainer. So now I'm going to say I got the call on Christmas Eve, Belen. Was that when I had the call on Christmas Eve from the bank saying in 3 or 4 days, we need to have these. We were able to transition and move, and within a week, get them as much as we could, the ability. And that was coming into a program where I didn't have faculty that were as engaged as Pete, just because we like with everything, you roll it out with certain segments of and Pete and our transportation, and that was our area that we were working with primarily. But then when we moved over to our business office technology and our business students, we hadn't had as much of these conversations. We've been working more with the county and doing those kind of things, but it was a really nice rollover. It was really, a lot of people are happy, and we're really seeing that we can really kind of adapt to the industry almost as fast as they can come to us. Now, the one thing that I would say that where I think Hartnell's the most limited is, number one, I only have one Belen. But really kind of that linchpin is this very first form that Belen is going to show, and it's that student interest form. Gathering that information and having that database of those qualified students from the entire spectrum of CTE is so important, so that then when those employers come in, we have this information. So Belen, go ahead and take it away.
Okay, so I kind of just got right to our academic information. Like, we keep talking about tiers. This is where a student identifies what tier they're from. I pretty much took from Pete, like, okay, what classes, and we figured out what classes they are, that they can kind of give background on what skills they're already equipped with because they've completed the course. Additional qualifications, Pete also touched on, like, our NC3 certifications. We have Ford, Toyota certifications, different things like that. So this is another opportunity for students to list those items out. And then I did mention earlier too, we want to make sure that we're making a match for the student. We want to know what they're interested in. So, and we even want to know if they have a specialization preference. So they're able to select any of these. Tell us what type of internship they're looking for, time length, when they're available, just kind of a lot of different. And then these are the others. You know, are you over the age of 18? Do you have a driver's license? Because we do have high school students in our classes too. And then this is just extra support that we offer the students. The one requirement is the interview prep, because like Pete mentioned, that came directly from industry. They were seeing the need that students needed to be prepared for that initial interview. They needed to know what to wear, how to dress, and everything like that. So this is the one for the student side of it. And then we kind of also, we have two different options depending on if they come through my office first or if they come through Jackie's. Jackie had theirs. Like, we didn't totally adapt our processes together, but we are very similar, and we make sure that we touch base on the same type of items. So this is my employer one. This is where they're able to identify what they're looking for, who they want, what type of flexibility they have, salary, of course. You know, this was key, and this is one thing that I know, Jackie, we had the staffing agency kind of pick up on their end, because we're very much about wanting to know if an employer is going to be flexible. Are they going to work around a student's schedule? Just kind of things that were afterthoughts in some of these cases, because you know, you get really excited when an employer's like, I want a student, give me a student. Okay, yes, I have the student, let's just, and then we never even discussed how many hours, what they were looking for, like kind of what they envisioned. So this form kind of helps us touch all of those. Employer, it just kind of depends too if the employer is going to fill this out. This is a check off list for me to, if I'm having that initial conversation with an employer also. And then I do have these all available to you guys. So I kind of prepared a Google folder for everyone here in this session. So you guys will have access to all of these. You guys have editing rights, but please don't change anything. Copy, save a copy for yourself, and do whatever you'd like with it. And then I also did place Jackie's in here too. This was their order form that they kind of go through to see what the employer wants and their needs are. I did see one question in here about how you would sell the idea of the student internships to other industry and business partners to generate more opportunities in the community. Clint kind of touched on that. This came about for our automotive program, but then quickly when we seen the banks approaching us, we thought, oh, this is a great model for them too. They didn't want to take the time to have to hire a number of students for a short-term amount of time. So just some other stuff that I kind of dropped in here in the toolkit for you all. Let me see which one it is. This is what we prepared when this was our direct meeting with employers from the dealerships about this internship program idea we had. So I dropped this in there too, so you could kind of see what we addressed with them, what we went over. But this was kind of like giving them the reason of why they're there, talking about our tiers again, telling them what our flow was. But then I really highlighted the benefits for their business. These were kind of key. Pete verbalizes them to them. I verbalize them to them. Jackie does the same type of thing. You know, liability is usually number one. And then all these other things, they get to test drive someone. They get to increase productivity. Just kind of really putting it out there, because sometimes you're right, employers don't see the big picture. They don't see the idea. So anything we could get out there in front of them.
This idea is really new to employers also. Sometimes they're a bit confused. They're like, what do you mean I could just have them for a day? I say, yeah, if you need them, we can start next week. And their usual response is, wait, we still have to go through the whole process. And I have to emphasize, you don't have to go through the process. The process is already set up. You just tell me when you need them. You know, it might take a few days, you know, to get them into the system, get them set up. But usually within about a week, from the student saying, I want to be part of it, the employer, if he responds quickly, once Jackie sends the email, the contract is sent back. I talk to the student, because before anyone get hired, I'm sorry, am I going ahead?
No, you're good.
Oh, before the student gets hired, I will meet with them personally. So, you know, they tell me, okay, so-and-so they want to hire him. So I will meet with them and say, look, before you go into the interview, make sure you know what you're going to wear. This is what you should wear. Even though this is the automotive industry, don't just walk in there, in shorts and flip flops, because you're going to think you're a joke. Put your phone away. Do not answer your phone during the interview. Don't be texting during the interview. And we go over some of those key things. I do incorporate many of the soft skills into my program. I went to a training a couple years ago, and I think it's awesome. And actually, when I talked to industry about it, they felt that was key. So, we do talk about adjusting the situations, about themselves, about, being able to persevere when they run into difficulties. So we try to prepare them as much as possible before they get out there. So I will, at this point, I've met with every single one of our students before they've gone through to an interview.
Belen, will you drop in the share drive? I think a lot of people are needing to drop off at before 9:30. So will you drop in your shared document? But as we're saying that, one of the things that I really want to tell everybody out there, but the secret sauce here is Jackie and her company, right? They didn't come in wanting this was the thing, is they were a mission-driven company that wanted to work with our employers and ourselves and make this successful, right? So one of the things about this is we weren't fighting about, and that one slide there that had balanced staffing and the Hartnell logo. I mean, for those of you guys that are deans out there, these are the things we fight about, right? Like, but wait, Hartnell College's logo needs to be 2.5% larger than your logo on the masthead, and we need to be in the center, and we need to do these things. But what I see here is a group that really wants to work with students. And the mic drop, the absolute mic drop at that auto dealership advisory meeting that we were setting in there, and the employer asked, but wait, if there's an excellent student, how long do I have to keep them on the books before I can hire them? Now, this is not, everybody's not going to answer it this way. And the answer was what, Jackie?
And that is everybody was stunned. Because it is a Hartnell student, the employer can hire that student at any time. After an hour, if they want to hire them, you're free to hire them. There's no fees, there's no processing fee, there's none of that. They're your employee then. So that was, everybody loved that part of it. Thanks for bringing that up, Clint. I forgot about that.
That was huge. That was huge. That was the game breaker. That is when I communicate with other areas, and they're like, okay, no, this is awesome. This is really awesome. And again, so I think it's that relationship between you as the staffing agency that came in and is just like totally there to help us, support us. The other thing that I'll say is we've missed our numbers with some of our employers. So when we talked about that bank, we came in and we didn't have a big enough pool of students. You know what? We were able to work with Jackie, and Jackie was able to get some of her other contacts in, because those of you guys also that know that when we're out there and we're working with these employers, if we can't supply their demand, they start talking to other places. And so this is this great relationship where we were able to be able to make that. And so to me, I would say, as we're talking about this, because we're talking about this in a perfect lens, but it's because we had a great partner, with Jackie and her company. I definitely would encourage you, really be serious about looking at and communicating with those staffing agencies and making sure that the benefits are going to the student. There was a question there about that payroll side. And so, Belen, can you share that with just that one slide? It's the balanced staffing sheet. And Jackie, maybe you kind of want to go through this and talk through this particular sheet.
Sure, you bet. So when I get a call or email from Belen or Pete and letting me know that there is an employer who's interested in bringing on an intern, what we did, especially for the automotive industry, we locked in the bill rate because it's just easier, right? So we have quoted a 1960 bill rate, and what that bill rate is to that dealership is, like I said before, it covers the pay rate for the employee, because they are a balanced employee at that point. All of the employer contributions, workers' comp, all of that is covered in there. And it's super easy because like Roman or Jim or Trish from, the employers, they have one point of contact. They can either call me or they get a hold of Belen. If the assignment is done, if the work is done, if they want to hire that intern. And we are the legal employer of record, and that's kind of important because of the liability fact and workers' comp, and knock on wood, we haven't had any injuries or we've had to like go down that path. So super happy about that. We do the invoicing. We bill the client weekly for the hours that the intern works, and they pay us. Once we coordinate with Belen the interviews and the employer has decided on the student they want to hire, then we contact that student and onboard them, and that can take less than 30 minutes, and get the agreement signed. That like I said, I can have an agreement done or put together on my side in a matter of minutes, and it's all up to the employer on how quickly they can get that signed. And then we have a start date. And it's been actually a lot of fun, and it's been really successful because we're getting those students the hands-on experience that they need, and employers have actually hired some of the interns from Hartnell College. So it's a really easy program that we've set up, and we've worked through all of the questions and ups and downs. And so I'm super happy that Belinda is going to be able to share the documents that we've created and how we've streamlined everything.
I see another question in the chat about data on initial placements and conversions to permanent employment with the program. I think Pete can kind of talk to a few of these.
But in the automotive part, remember guys, we haven't been doing this for not even a year yet. So it's kind of hard to collect a lot of hard data on this. But I can tell you, I mean, out of the 3 students that started the program or initially right off the bat, 2 of them were hired. 2 of the 3, and the one that wasn't hired is still in the program and still kind of going through it. So this semester we have a couple more that are going through it. So we don't have any numbers on those yet. But I mean, if I were to based off of that, I would say 60% of the students going out there in my program have been hired, but that wouldn't be a great number. Give us some time to try this out. But if you guys have any ideas or kind of you don't have any input to what we're doing, we'd be happy to hear from you. I mean, it's just something that we came up with on the fly, and we're trying to make this a better program. So any of your feedback is appreciated.
And Benjamin, I would say, based on what we're looking at, and like Pete's saying, so number one with Toyota, and that's the primary one that we're kind of talking about today, and we have done it at other shops and across a couple other industries. But exactly, those were, and again, I want to go back to what Pete was saying. Those were his first semester students. I mean, they were still, you could tell them to go to the toolbox and get a left-handed screwdriver, and they might walk over there. Okay. So for people that don't know, screwdrivers are either hand. You can use them either hand. So being able to convert that student into an employee is huge, right? That wasn't one of our scopes that we were looking at with those particular students. We were trying to keep them with the momentum, right? We were trying to keep them momentum and moving on. So we're really going to start to see, we anticipated we're going to see the biggest conversion now coming out of the business office technology, and those students that we're starting to see that tend to be our more mature students that are really ready to convert into employment. And then also now Pete's highest tier of students that we're getting out there and placing. And so again, but there's also a different perspective. And I think some of you guys are going to be able to understand this really well. Some of our partners, right? They're best suited to be able to bring in more students than they can realistically hire. And that's how they're going to support our programs. They're going to support our programs by being able to bring in multiple students, knowing that they're training some of their competitions employees, but that's how they're going to support our program. Where we're going to see those students really thrive, right, is, and again, going back to, you know, in our program is full of students that I'm sure very much like you guys' programs, but our students are very much economically disadvantaged. The concept, so, and we live in an agriculture world, so most of our students, they make their money working in the fields, harvesting lettuce, and so we're the salad bowl of the world. So if you've eaten lettuce or berries, you know, in the last 6 months, it either came from us or down in Yuma during the wintertime period. But this is where it's coming from. And so our students definitely have no problem with being hard workers. They've been working very, very hard their entire lives. The equity change here is, and that's why it's so important for the paid components and these things. We could go into these larger shops and ask them to now bring on 3 and 4. And that 3 and 4 may seem small, but that's actually asking an employer quite a bit. But we can go around to these larger shops and ask them, will you do 3 and 4? Will you do 3 and 4? Will you do 3 and 4? They may only hire 1, but those other 2 students that are going to be able to go out there, they're going to go into those smaller shops that just don't have the capability to take, let's face it, an apprentice style person on board. And that is where we're really going to be excited, where we're going to be able to track in the next 3 to 5 years, where Blend is going to be hopefully we're going to be tracking this. We're going to get our software up and running. We purchased software, but our IT department hasn't been able to get it all installed yet. But then we'll be able to come back with some data as we move forward.
Yeah, and Clint, if I could just add to what you were saying, when I had the first initial conversations with the employer, and we're going to talk about Roman because he was our very first, when he told me about the idea that Hartnell College and he came up with, I'm an employer and I talk to different employers all day long. That's my job. And it is such a brilliant idea because I said to him, I said, wow, you are training your next employee. And he said, exactly right. I am training my next workforce, my next employee that I'm going to hire. And so, and in today's economy, I mean, it is hard to find employees. So, you know, when all of you get the opportunity to go out and talk to different employers about this kind of program, I'm sure they're going to jump at the chance because it's future employees for them, and everybody is looking for employees right now.
Parts and People magazine a couple years ago put out some information about automotive students or the automotive technology field, the need, the career, and they were lacking in 2018. There was a big gap of about 36,000 technicians. Right now, employers realize, they know that most of their really good technicians are over the age of 40, that they need to get young blood in there. And they really are looking to invest into students who really want to learn. So here's the thing, as an employer, they know that they're not going to get their rock stars every time. You know, it's really hard to find a really good technician that really wants to go into the field that has been doing it for a while. So they're looking for the young person who really wants to learn, that has good work ethic, that is there to learn, that is hungry, that is really interested. And it's really hard to get into the dealership because they just will not hire anybody. So that is why we creating this. The dealerships are willing to, one, try it because they can just try the student, see if it works out. They don't have to go through the big, process of hiring somebody. And if they like them, they can take them right away. And believe me, right now, actually, through the program, I started here teaching maybe about 4 years ago. When I started, we had 0 completions in the automotive field. We went from 0 to 4 to 3 to 10. And I can, and this is good data for you guys. Out of those 10, students that graduated, 100% of the students who were looking for jobs were hired by dealerships. So we are getting students into the workforce, but now the advantage is that they will be better prepared, because it doesn't matter how much they know, they will not understand the speed at which they have to work at until they are there. Once they're there in the dealership, they know what they're getting into. But not only that, it's a whole different world. They've only seen working on cars from Fast and the Furious and all these movies, but now they are actually at the dealership looking at these newer cars, being able to touch them, being able to drive them, being able to fix them. And that's a really good motivating force.
And Pete, on that line, and because that's it, I also want us to give our mind the perspectives of really where this is, because this is now it also starts to affect maybe how you guys are going to be looking at, or at least for us, it's affecting how we're looking at our advisory committees. So because now before, right, we would have these kind of stagnant things, right? Death by PowerPoint advisory committees. This is now, we're starting to get closer and closer and closer to real-time feedback. So a couple of things that I would caution people on. You're going to have students that get fired, especially the younger they are in your program. I'm going to tell you, we don't want to do that, but that's okay. So one of the things that you know, a lot of times we're not going to mention is quote unquote those failures. But we talked about that there was 3 students that we sent to Toyota, and 2 of them were absolute. They wanted them forever. One had a driving thing that just made it where it wasn't able to happen. But there was one student, and Mr. Escoda kind of touched on it in the video and has touched on it today, that didn't meet their expectations. But you know what? That student found out that he didn't meet that industry expectations their first semester of their college career. They were able to come back and be mentored by Mr. Escoda. Okay, I talked with that student about some other issues, and he told me about how this was this life-changing thing, like that he kind of knew that he wasn't meeting the bar, but he kind of wanted it, you know, it just was, and now he notices, and it's this redriving force. Because I think a lot of times in education, what we do is we keep people inside of education, right? And then we send them out into the wolves that is industry. And you know, and that's, and I don't care if it is Mr. Escoda's auto program, if it's our welding program, if it's our ag program, if it's our business program. That's the biggest thing that we tend to hear from our employers, right? About new hires coming from college into industry is the sheer speed and expectations that industry is having for our students. And this opportunity to be able to give them in these small bites for them to be able to see it, it's phenomenal. The other thing is, you know, the high tide rises all boats. As those students that are in and they're doing these internships, they're also bringing this information back in and communicating with the students in their classes, right? They're letting people know how fast that they have to do an oil change on the rack and how much faster it is than they're doing it in class, and how they have to be. And I saw several people, one of the things that we cut out, and Glenn will put in the folder so you guys can see the rest of the conversation with the Toyota parts manager, is really about the teamwork side of it. I mean, that is, they love the hard skills that Mr. Escoda gives them. But they've got to be able to go in there and work with the team, and they have to understand how to be able to manage that and do those things. And so all of those components, that's what we keep getting this feedback on. And to me, that was some of these really bright sides. The other segments of it is when there's great successes or when there's failures, that information is either fed back through Jackie or Belen, and she's feeding that back to Mr. Escoda. I'm going to use an example not in auto. I'm sorry, Pete, but I'm going to use an example of we had a student that moved into an ag tech. And so agriculture, high technology, robotic stuff, and computer apps is something that we do quite a bit in our area. And so we had 3 students that went in for this small startup. And on the very first week of this startup, the company told our students they didn't have a dress code and they didn't have specific times of work. Our students listened to their words. There's not a dress code and there isn't specific times of work. And so they treated that job exactly like what they were told. And then all of a sudden, this startup company was unhappy with them and reached out to Glenn and I and said, hey, you know, you need to come in and have a conversation with the students. And when we went in and we had that triage conversation with the employer and where there was the unhappiness, we heard, well, the one student showed up one day to work in yoga pants and they were going to have to go talk to a farmer. And well, gee whiz, you would never wear yoga pants to a farmer to do an interview with a farmer. And the other student wasn't, working 40 hours a week. And again, so then this is those segments of which where Blinn is going to go in and help and work with those students to understand some of these things. Like, especially for us, we find if they're a startup company and they say that there's no specific times a student needs to work, what that really means is you're going to get paid 40 hours a week, but we expect you to work 80 hours a week. There's some of these things that, like, watch out for when someone says this. When someone says, hey, there's not a dress code, there is probably a dress norm in your industry, and talking with that employer and trying to find those kind of things. But again, these are all information that we were able to hear and bring back to our faculty. So we were able to come back in and talk to our ag tech instructor and say, start incorporating some of these conversations, start doing some of these types of things. I think Mr. Escoda talked about, the resume and the interview components. Those were those feedbacks that we got from our employers that said, we're not saying that they weren't good students, but they sure, we wouldn't want to hire them based on our first aspect.
Yeah, just to piggyback on that, and everything you shared was correct. And even faculty adapting to, like, kind of what industry is saying, the same time we're adapting to it. Pete talked about those soft skills that he embeds in his curriculum. Well, not all of our faculty are doing that. So then we've now rolled out workshops through my office that focus on those specific soft skills. And I kind of really know to bring those up when I'm talking with employers so that they can, managing expectation, them knowing what they're going to get, or knowing they don't even know that they want something sometimes. And so it's really nice to have these experiences, then to be able to go back and talk about those types of things. And I do the soft skills. We do a pre-test. We do different things like that. And 9 times out of 10, students think they have these skills, but when they sit through the workshop, then they're like, oh, that's what that means. Oh, well, I wouldn't have approached it that way. So it's really a great learning experience, and really trying to embed all these different tools for the student all along the way, all along their path, prior to the internship, during their internship, after their internship, all of it. There's constant learning that needs to happen.
All right. So now we're in our transition time. Now we're going to go into breakout rooms. So I hope no one feels like that we have all the answers. So number one, we had an automotive program that had some legacy, but Pete was our first full-time faculty. I hired Belen into a career prep and placement position, and I said, build it. And she said, well, can you tell me what it's going to look like? And I said, no, that's your job. Report back to me in 2 weeks. We've truly built this airplane while we're flying it. And we really would love you guys' input on, some of our, what we're doing. We would love to hear from what you guys are doing, because I love to steal people's great ideas. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and in the chat, I'm going to go ahead and put in a Google document. It's in the chat here. And I'm going to force everybody into breakout rooms. And in our chat rooms, we're going to ask you guys to talk about, and this is the old instructor in me, we're going to think, pair, share. So what I'm going to ask you guys to do is I'm going to break everybody into 3 breakout rooms, and we've got 3 questions. And we want you guys to just go in there and start looking at those, have someone that's going to report back out. And so we'll go in there for about 10 minutes. If you guys can discuss, if you need more time, but we've got the 3 questions for group room 1, 2, and 3. Do all 3 of those. and I'm going to be on the outside, but I will send you guys to breakout rooms. Uh-oh. Glenn, do you have breakout rooms now? I don't.
I will get it going.
Oh, here or there.
Oh,
Breakout
you
rooms.
found
Sorry.
it? Okay.
Got it. I'm going to do automatically.
There's never enough time in those breakout rooms.
It was just getting good. Just kidding. I was good.
So
But it's in the process.
I can't speak for all of my people, but I have to run at the end of this thing, but I'm sure Belen and some can hang around a little bit and answer more questions afterwards. But more importantly, I would say, right, we don't have to have a convention for us to get together. So I'm hoping those people that would like to get together and meet and continue the conversation online on this particular PowerPoint presentation, up a little bit higher there was a spot for you to go ahead and put in on slides 3 and 4. Put in your contact information and Belen will reach out to you and we can set up a couple Zoom sessions to continue the conversation. That being said, does someone from room 1 like to let us know what happened in your conversation? There was only 2 of you.
So I don't know, Jeannie, if you want to mention anything. We kind of just had a deeper conversation, answered some more questions from our presentation.
Okay, no, that's good. How about group 2? You guys were the largest and the only ones to get an A on this assignment. Thank you for actually filling out the sticky notes.
Oh, we were supposed to fill out the sticky notes? Sorry, my bad.
Oh boy.
My bad, Elizabeth. That was my fault.
Was that
Room
Pete or
2?
Oh yeah, that was me. We were in 3 though. No, we were in 3.
Yeah, room 3 didn't know about the sticky notes. It's okay.
Yeah.
We still had a great conversation.
And the bad part is I'm staring at the sticky notes. Sorry. But did you want us to talk about room 3 or do you want to go back to room 2?
No, let's go to Jackie. Jackie, do you want to talk about what happened or your whole group can pitch in and have a little conversation? Anyone?
Yeah, so yes, for sure. So we didn't do sticky notes, but it was really good to talk to each one of the people in my group. We talked about the internship programs and what they have and what they don't have and some of the struggles that each one of you are facing. So it was, it's pretty interesting. Dory, Benjamin, or any of you want to comment on information that we shared?
I was actually the one that filled out the sticky notes as we were talking. The item that I brought up, similar to this, is how a staffing agency, we're trying to consider getting into the biotech sector, where we have more difficulty with internships and placements, because the biotech sector works almost exclusively for their entry-level positions with staffing agencies, in the San Diego area at least. And so thinking about how we build out apprenticeships even with biotech and how we could leverage staffing agencies to help with rotating placements throughout the apprenticeship. That's something I'm trying to think through, and main reason why I came to this presentation, to see how this was working with internships. So I appreciated the conversation.
And I'm going to steal your idea on apprenticeships because I've been thinking. I've got a food safety one that I'm getting ready to start right now, and I'd love your idea there. The one thing that I would say, and I also noticed that some of the concerns is that the fees and the costs. I think really talking. I think Jackie's concept of that, because the college is doing a lot of the onboarding and some of those segments, that's why those for her company was able to bring those fees down, because we have Belen there and doing those things. So I'd really encourage you to keep those conversations, because exactly that can be a barrier. Anything else from room 2?
I don't think so. It was fun.
Mr. Escoto, or anybody from room 3?
Well, we talked about coming to these meetings, how we're all first timers, most of us. So which was kind of cool though, because we get to network and learn from each other. Elizabeth was there. Elizabeth, you want to? She is the one who kind of talked a little bit there.
Sure. So I am with Las Positas College, and I'm a CTE outreach specialist representing programs in the arts and humanities, auto tech, and welding. So it's really kind of a range of things, and I'm really excited to hone in on the auto tech piece here. Our faculty coordinator is really passionate about this, and he loves new ideas, and it always comes down to a matter of bandwidth, of course, but I would really love to share this with my supervisor too, our CTE program manager and our VP of academic services. Like Douglas, who's in our room, I feel like I've heard about micro internships, but just kind of as an idea, I've never actually had a real life example or case study like this. So it was so cool to be able to dig into this. And like I was saying, I've seen Belen before at our BACCC job developer meetings on Fridays, but I didn't know that she was doing this. So, you know, we don't always have time to talk about all of the different things that we're doing. So I'm really excited about this. And I wanted to thank you guys again for sharing this.
Elizabeth, if you ever want me to meet with Brian, I know Brian and anybody else, and to kind of go into more specifics on how to do it, because it's always, there's always that fear that nobody's going to want to jump on board. And again, when I first started doing this, the advisories was the way to do it. But sometimes you go into advisories, and it just depends how you go into the advisories. Honestly, I did not at first. I'm like, why do I have to do these dumb meetings where people really don't want to be here? Kind of was my attitude. But once I started getting the involvement, even if it's just from one dealership, I thought it was great, because that's what led to this, is that connection with dealerships. Is saying, okay, so this is what you want. And the other thing is being open-minded. I think as instructors, some of us who've been doing it a long time, we get this idea that, no, this is the way I want to run my program, this is the way it has to run. When honestly, and I'll tell you this right now, the automotive field is changing. We're going through a time period, just like we did in the late 80s, early 90s, when we went from carburetors to fuel injection. You have those guys that say, no, carburetors are the best way to go. And everybody's saying, well, I don't care what you think, we're going fuel injection. Well, right now, technology, cars, autonomous vehicles, that's what's happening. You know, electric cars, that we're in that transition, and the type of technicians that are needed right now are very different. I mean, newer cars, they don't even need oil changes. You know, if you have an electric car, you don't need oil changes. You don't need transmission services. You don't need timing belts. So, and when you think of a technician, you think, oh yeah, the guy who changes my oil, right? Well, that mentality has to go out the door. You know, that's not the type of a breed of technicians that we're creating right now. So the advisories are the best way, are really the bridge that we need to get the student prepared and ready when they get out there. And the great thing about the internship is now that not only has the student crossed the bridge, but you know, the employer has seen the student, and now he knows, yes, this is what I want, this is what I don't want.
But Pete, what I'm going to step in there too is I think there's also a feeling of people losing connection, right? Like, but wait, it's taken me years to build up my advisory committee, and these are my industry partners, and now Belen is going to go talk to them, or Dean's going to go talk to them, and they're going to say the wrong words, and wait, these are my people and I have to protect them. And I think what can happen is by being able to come in with this, now my faculty are able to work on the things that they're actually paid to do, right? Curriculum updates, teaching classes, doing all those kinds of things. They're still there. We're never, I think you heard that. Like, it can't work if Pete's not directly involved, heavily involved. But he doesn't know all the things, you know, the good old days, quote unquote, of, oh, just give me one student. Give me your best student, right? Those are legal nightmares. But being able to go in and create this process and do this, it allows everybody to really succeed. And so it's really good. Okay, we have, we're done with time, but I really would, in the chat box there, I did put up the survey. We really are interested in your feedback. We really appreciate your time. Thank you so much. And again, Belen, because she's amazing and she does all the work and I do nothing. But Belen will help set up some follow-up conversations. But please, everybody, if you can, take our survey so that we can do a better job next time. Thank you very much and have a wonderful rest of your day.